You're listening to Women Who Badass Radio, where we interview high-achieving women to find out how they achieve their stellar results.
I'm your host, Chelly Canales. Today we have a fantastic guest, Heidi Bendixson Naples. Heidi is the co-founder of Heidis Brooklyn Deli, a family-owned and community-oriented company that brings a taste of the East Coast to Denver and beyond. So I met Heidi at an event for Project Cure, which is a nonprofit that provides life-saving medical supplies to third world countries. Now, it's an organization that is close to both of our hearts. So we began chatting, and we not only connected on a nonprofit and business level, but on a deeper, even spiritual level as well. I've learned that Heidi was born in Brooklyn. I've lived there too, love it, and was raised in the East Coast, where she met her then husband, whose work in broadcasting would eventually bring them to move to Denver in the 1990s. So missing the diverse and easily accessible food scene in the East Coast inspired them to create what would become Heidis Brooklyn Deli. In 10 years, they had expanded to 5 locations, all baking multiple breads and bagels from scratch every morning, you guys. And then Heidis began franchising in 2005, and many of those locations are still doing wonderfully today. Heidi became the sole owner of the franchise company in 2018, and with the help of a small team of spectacular women, including her daughters, is planning for the future. She has also begun consulting with others that wish to follow their own small business dreams. That is wonderful. Heidi, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Chelly.
It's my pleasure. I want to talk about your journey here. I know that you studied psychology in college, so I'm very curious. What took you from, wanting to study one thing to becoming this business maven? Take me on that journey.
Well, after my degree, we moved back to Brooklyn, and I ended up working in healthcare. I really enjoyed the people and worked my way into the business side of the business and found that really resonated with me. Mm-hmm. But when Steve and I moved to Colorado, there was really no food that we could sink our teeth into, literally. And we had this crazy idea after buying a house in what is now known as the Highlands.
Mm-hmm. Good time to get in.
It was, because it was known as North Denver then, for people that have lived here a long time. And we had a crazy idea to open a deli, and we had both waitered in college and loved food. That was the extent of our experience.
Well, you saw the need. That was great. You jumped on it.
Yeah, we didn't know what we didn't know, and maybe that was a good thing. And I was able to utilize my business skills that I'd sharpened a little bit working for small healthcare companies. And Steve is kind of a very entrepreneurial person, so he put on his tool belt hammer. We built the store ourselves, actually with a home equity loan. Wow. And people embraced it, and it just went from there.
That is phenomenal. So you have, I guess, a long time knowledge of what it takes to build a company from scratch. So your mother was a small business owner. So how did that influence you growing up? And did you take some great advice from her to put towards your journey?
I think it was more her modeling as a woman. Her parents were immigrants. All 4 of my grandparents were immigrants from Norway. And she was told, although she was very smart and did really well in school, that she could not go to college. Mm. Her brother was the only one that was going to get that opportunity. So I think, I know.
I'm just shaking my head over here.
Go figure. So I think they moved to a small town. I grew up in far western New Jersey, and she found a way to ignite her passion and use her intelligence by opening a fabric store. I was 5 years old, and I used to go there with her. I started working there when I was 12, and I saw her put her passion into action, connect with the community, become, it was a small town. She knew everyone. And also the organization it took for her to pay the bills, do her little payroll, pay her taxes. Mm-hmm. And I guess in my mind, I said, oh, that's possible. I could do that. I could run a small business and put those foundations into work that she really modeled for me. I don't think we ever talked about it. She was worried when we opened the business that with young children, maybe it was too much, but certainly she knew I was capable. So I think that she gave me a little bit of belief in myself to just do it. without waiting too long, without asking too many questions, and just believe and put one foot in front of the other.
What an amazing gift. She instilled that confidence in you from a young age, which it seems to me that you've instilled this in your daughters as well. So you've got a family of strong business females. So exciting to hear about. And, I'm always curious what it's like to work with family in a very close situation like that. There's got to be some wonderful aspects to it that are so rewarding, but it must come with some challenges as well.
Absolutely. Well, our daughters were 9 months old and 4 when we started the business, and therefore grew up in it, worked by our side, learned things they didn't know they were learning. That was great in many ways because they have a strong work ethic and they know every aspect of the business. It wasn't in other ways because they kind of had to tag along and would roll their eyes at us a lot when we have to stop by the store, or when people called out sick or there were challenges. They were well aware of those. We always let them have a seat at the table. So their knowledge, despite their youth, is pretty vast, and I'm really proud of that. The challenge, though, is the family dynamic can come into play a lot. And we sometimes have to remember we're doing business together and it's not just family. I'm very proud of them, and I've seen their skill sets develop in different ways. They're very different people. So they for sure bring great things to the table. But sometimes the sister or the mother dynamic enters in, and that is a big challenge.
It's true. But I'm curious, did they bring anything to the table being, the next generation that you maybe wouldn't have thought of before? Some kind of fresh perspective that maybe increased your capacity of realizing what the business could be?
Absolutely. My older daughter has 2 kids, a little girl who's 7 and a little boy who's 3.5. And when she was pregnant, she came to us and said, we always have sold quality food, but now that the world's learning where our food comes from and where it's sourced and where it's grown and how it's grown, that's meaningful. So can we go in that direction? So she spearheaded a change to go clean with our ingredients, many of our ingredients, which 8 years ago was very challenging because people didn't embrace it. People didn't have knowledge. Certainly distributors and manufacturers didn't embrace it. So that was a long and arduous journey, but we're really proud of that. And more today, it's more widely known. Customers are understanding more every day. So we're really proud to offer those sort of ingredients in our quality. But it was a long journey, and it was spearheaded by Janae. And my younger daughter just graduated with her master's from film school.
Wow.
She was away for 6 years, 4 of those years in London. So she brings this very wise, grounded, and interesting perspective now that she's back and helping us. And it's great to see them work as a team and sort of push me out of the way. And that's quite all right.
But it does certainly bring a company into the next generation, like into years and years of staying in business when you do adapt. So it's pretty phenomenal that your daughter had the foresight to say, yes, I think we need to go clean with our ingredients, and you had the willingness to say, I'm ready to do this change. I mean, maybe it might be challenging and it might take more resources than we realize, but in the long run, where do we want our business to go? Because I imagine you would like to be running this business for a very long time.
Yes, for sure. I think they now see it as a legacy.
Oh, yeah.
Certainly, I mean, their dad and I did because they grew up in it, and we're really proud of what we created. And keeping it closely held like this is a wonderful opportunity nowadays. But having daughters that are interested matters. I know a lot of self-employed people that don't know what they'll do when a time for a transition comes. So right. I'm very grateful.
Wow. And it is really rare to hear these days, family businesses, to hear it pass from generation to generation. So it's a really beautiful, and I'm almost comforted by it. Like, it's a comforting thing too. And I see so much potential in the knowledge, the institutional knowledge that's carried from generation to generation, as well as the innovation of the new generation. I think that makes for just an incredibly unstoppable business.
Well, I sure hope so. I do notice that older people in our industry don't really appreciate my daughter's wisdom.
Ah,
So that's interesting when we're at conferences or food shows. Of course, once they start talking about their knowledge, it surprises people. And being women, I think it's a challenge for them to have a great voice and be able to express their knowledge and begin to be heard, because many things in our industry are very traditional.
yes.
And so I'm really proud of them for that as well. But I want people to kind of wake up that they have a lot of knowledge and they have a lot of wisdom, and women in general do and should be heard.
Yes. And you're leading the charge on that. They're leading the charge on that. And this is where the future is headed. So it's like, come on, guys, get on board or be left behind. And I think there's this transition that's happening, and there is so much value to be had in the wisdom of how it's been done before. But that's also such a great way to inform us of where we can go next. So, kudos to your family for leading the charge here. That's fantastic.
Well, it's just the journey. I can't say when we started. We're actually in our 25th year this year.
Wow.
I can't say it was a definite destination at the time, but now we're really trying to see where we're going more clearly.
And speaking of where you are and where you're headed, you recently transitioned to total ownership of the franchise. So this is a slightly different role, or maybe majorly different role than you've had to do in the past. And so I imagine it pulled out different qualities in you that you had to work with in order to meet this new role. Can you speak to that?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, Steve and I met in high school. So we had a long journey together, created a lot. And I found myself always being the encourager and in the background, which was a real comfortable place for me to be. In fact, all my personality tests have shown me to be collaborative and a team player and an encourager, not a leader necessarily. It became quite apparent last year that it was time for this to wind down after all these years. And it took a lot of energy and thought to honor what we created together and appreciate him in this transition as a man who was kind of the face of things and was a center of the room kind of guy, to honor that, but still step into this place where now it's mine and I have to own it.
Right.
So it's creating, including doing this today, stretching my comfort zones, having a voice, honoring my own voice, which has kind of been a lifelong challenge for me. So that was really hard. And I have to say, we had, through a friend, a company that helped us with that transition on the very emotional side of it. The business side was pretty easy. That's just business.
Right.
But I don't think we could have accomplished it without this other team to guide us through the close family dynamics and generational dynamics and man-woman dynamics that we were going through.
I just honor that so much. Not everybody realizes that those are two separate components, the family dynamics and the business dynamics. And it's hard to navigate them both. Not everyone's going to feel comfortable doing them on their own. So I really, admire that you went out of your way to find people to help with this transition. Can you speak to what it's like to ask for help, or what have you learned about, I don't have to be that person who makes this all happen all by myself? Because trust me, I've got that complex. So I always really value and honor when people can step outside of themselves and say, who's got the expertise, who has the genius that can help us through this?
Yeah, I wish I would have asked for help more through the years. I think you're right. As women, we tend to be everything to everyone. And we're really good at a lot of things. We're multifaceted. When my kids were young, we were running the business. I wish I'd asked for more assistance. I just tried to shoulder everything myself. And I think I limited certain aspects of my life at that time. Once Steve and I actually separated 11 years ago, and my kids were almost grown at that point. So I finally had this amazing chapter where I could meet wonderful women and befriend women that were far different than myself. And I kind of wish I'd done that sooner. But I would advise anybody in life to learn, especially us women, to ask for help when we really need it, whether it's personally, in our relationships, professionally, because I think people genuinely want to help.
I think they do. I have a lot of trouble asking for help, and it makes me feel almost shameful if I can't do it all myself. There's a sense of guilt. Like, why would I put that on anyone else? This is my thing. And if I can't do it, that means I'm not the superwoman I thought I was. So there's a lot to unpack there. When it really comes down to it, if somebody asked you for help, wouldn't you just help them? Wouldn't it just be natural to do that? And I don't think anyone would think less of you for asking for help.
Yeah, I agree. And I think for me, being that encourager type, that's where I've always found myself being most comfortable. And I love helping other people, particularly women. Mm-hmm. And I don't think we see ourselves as others see us. And I love to highlight to people, even strangers that I meet or friends that I'm cultivating, how beautiful and wonderful I think they are. And it always seems to surprise people. And of course, when people say kind things about me, it surprises me because I don't see myself that way. But I wish that I had just asked for some mentorship, being in business, in a family business, in a husband-wife business. I learned a little too late that I now share with people when I meet them or they're contemplating going into a business. Say, oh, my husband and I are starting a business. I learned a lot too late about that. So I'm always happy to share that. And if people don't ask, sometimes I say, hey, I just have a little advice for you, because they won't ask for the help, and I won't want to see people necessarily follow the path we did.
Yes, and that's taken you to want to do this for other females who are starting in business, and we can talk about that in just a moment. I want to hear more about that because it's highly, highly valuable, and I will probably be tapping you for advice at some point, just putting it out there. You've got such great knowledge. I want to ask about one of the things that surprised me when we got to talking, how quickly we jumped into this spiritual component of our business life, in terms of, using intuition to make decisions, or not as the sole way of making decisions, but using it as a highly valuable tool in the toolbox. We can use our intuition in terms of what deals to take, what people to work with. Can you tell me a little bit about how that's played a role in your business life?
Absolutely. So I was kind of in the shadow, and my ex was the front man of most things. He was very trusting and believed a handshake was somebody's word. And we learned the hard way. He opened multiple other businesses that I was not a partner in, but I was a wife. So it kind of our family was sucked into these issues. And what I learned is not everyone is in alignment with our values. And I think as we grow our businesses or grow in our lives, it's easy to find people that do align with us and we're comfortable with and that want to see our success. And I would say that is who I seek out now. There's no reason why I can't do business with or be in partnership with people that I really like and that see the world the way I see the world. And if something can't happen today because I haven't met that right person yet, I shouldn't rush and make a deal or go into business with someone that I don't admire and that I wouldn't want to, have dinner with. And early on, we didn't do that. And it led to a lot of learning and growing experiences.
Yeah, sometimes we learn the hard way and we think, why didn't I listen to that little voice? I know I heard that feeling in my stomach that was like a grumbling, and it was uncomfortable every time I saw them, and I didn't really pay attention to it. So, that's like a really good reminder to, take a step back, even if it doesn't mean you necessarily have to call something off, but at least take a breath, right? Step back for a moment and reevaluate and maybe take some time. I find a lot of times when I make these decisions against my gut, it's because I'm up against some kind of deadline.
Exactly. And also I think in a partnership situation or perhaps in a family decision-making process or a marriage, people are not necessarily of the same mind. And in my situation, I put myself as a wife first and a businesswoman second.
Mm-hmm.
And looking back, I wish that I had asserted my businesswoman side more. I don't think my ex-husband would have liked that at the time, but I think it would have served us in the long term. But just a learning experience, because it's hard to be in partnership with people. It's hard to make decisions when you have more than one person that has to weigh in on that. But trusting your gut, and really, if you align with people, there's lots of people in the world to be in partnership with, or be in business with, or do business with. So at least we should feel good about those relationships to enter into them.
Because you spend so much time of your life, working with these people, it should make sense. And does that come into play when you build a team around you that's not your family as well? Do you spend a lot of time with other team members besides your daughters at this point?
Yeah, we have another team member who's very closely intertwined in everything, who happens to be a woman. We actually did a personality profile recently to see where our skill sets lie, and we all fell in different quadrants, which was amazing and awesome. So we can confidently have a small team and accomplish a lot of what we need to. That was very interesting to me.
And you did that quite naturally. It was just, it just happened to fit that way.
Yes, exactly.
Wow. That's impressive. I was thinking also about a fun thing a fun clearing of energy thing you do. You have a ritual that you bring over some women. Is it once a year that you like to do this this plate throwing ceremony?
Yeah. It's the winter solstice. Typically, I've done it for 7 years, so this year will be number 8. It stemmed from actually a restaurant my ex had opened right before the recession, and was a challenge. It was beautiful, and the food was beautiful, and the people were beautiful that worked for us, and it just ultimately couldn't survive after several years. And I had a stack of plates from it, and I don't see myself as a bitter and angry person, but I was kind of angry at that situation, and I thought about breaking those plates, and then I thought, oh no, that sounds so terrible. I don't want to break things. Then I thought about Greek people and how they celebrate by breaking things. And at a Jewish wedding, they break glass, and said, well, maybe that could be positive and negative, and maybe I could share this experience with friends. And I had met many women when I became single, as I mentioned before, that I really admired, that were so different than me. So I invited all of the women that I really liked, and turned out to be about 35-ish the first year. And I encouraged them to, on the front of the plate, write what they're calling in, what they're hoping for, what they're thankful for, what they're grateful for, what's going right. And then on the back of the plate, what they needed to release or let go of or be done with, whatever it meant to them. And these women range from about 80-year-old friend down to my daughters and their friends. And everybody showed up, and many didn't know one another, but the energy and the community that arose from that was amazing. People were just open. Their hearts were open. If people wanted to say something, they could. They didn't have to. It's not formal, but it was just an amazing energy. And the following year, I had several women say, when are you doing this again? We have to be back. And I want to tell you, everything I wished for on my plate happened.
Wow.
That felt awesome for them and really powerful. So I've done that for 7 years. Every year, depends on how the holiday falls. I do it on the Friday, Saturday near the solstice. So sometimes the same people can come. Sometimes they can't. Some people have been at all 7. My granddaughter's now been at 3 since she was 4 and breaking her.
And early. I love it.
Yeah. And I love to see the energy and the support. So it's nothing about me. It's just really seeing these people coming together as women, as community, being able to be honest and open, share their hurts, their fears, but also their triumphs, and have all this power behind them. And we just literally, I hang a tarp on my wall. I don't think the architect that designed my house knew this space would be used this way, but it was perfect. And we throw the plates one at a time. We give a big cheer. My neighbors think every winter solstice, there's something weird going on, but it's an amazing ritual, as you said.
What a healthy thing to do, to release all the things that can weigh us down from being our best selves in business, being our best selves in life. And I see that as a recharging of the batteries. And I think if we did that more frequently, we would be healthier as a society. So I'm really grateful to you for doing your part to clear the energy in your little part of the world, this community that you've created. It's a very positive thing.
Well, I'm blessed. It's fun. And I get as much support as I give, for sure. I'm probably not the best at it, because I certainly carry a lot of feeling about a lot of things, but it's an honor to host it. It's really, really a great evening.
So this is the stuff that I love talking about. Let's talk about the more boring stuff. So there's very detail-oriented things about running a business. Now, I'm saying boring for me. Some people really love that part of it, but the small stuff, the details, the stuff you don't think about when you're visioning a new business. What would you say are a few key things to know about that?
Well, I think that any passion still has a business side to it. Even in our home life, in our personal life, if we have to take care of the practical things. And starting a business, my opinion is get it organized early. And if you don't have that skill set, find some help, someone that does, particularly around starting your business, with what kind of entity you want to be. Make sure you have a good bank, because there are some not so good banks, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. A good bookkeeper or a good bookkeeping program, and a way to file and keep oneself organized. And that certainly is not the fun part of anything, but it helps so much to feel calm and put energy where it's meant to go. I think when you have your ducks in a row, when you're starting out, and there's a lot of, I think, wonderful people out in the world, accountants or lawyers, not that I love either of those, but they're really necessary to start off on the right foot so things don't go sideways down the road.
And thank goodness for accountants and lawyers, because we need people who are experts in what they do to come to the table and show us what we need to. And when I say we, I guess I mean like an entrepreneur who is, again, really excited about the vision, but not too sure about the other things. So I love that every person who's here on this planet comes with such unique gifts and special skills that they decide to share with the world. So it all works together. It's a beautiful, beautiful synergy that way.
Absolutely. I would say, though, what I've learned, all lawyers are not the same. So finding the right category is really important.
Yes.
Somebody's brother-in-law is a divorce lawyer doesn't mean he should be the one that creates a contract.
Right.
So just a caution there, because I've made those mistakes.
No, it's taken.
And down the road, it's really important to have the right things in place to protect your business, protect the other people that are in business with you, so things don't come up at the back end. So finding that right person, and also they can be in alignment with your values. It should be someone you really like, not just someone you need.
That's right. That's right. Someone you want to spend time with. You have to share information and keep in contact. That makes a lot of sense. Well, I think you are most definitely a woman who badasses. So here's my question for you. How would you define a woman who badasses?
I think most of all, it is a woman that keeps learning.
I love that. Wow. Yeah.
Because life will keep, if you keep at it, I think it will keep throwing new challenges and opportunities your way. So I'm never done learning. I know a lot. Some I learned the hard way, some I've researched and studied, but I'm still learning every day. And I value that. And I think another really important thing is to listen, not just hear, because in the world today, I think a lot of people, me included, are caught up in being right with my opinion.
That would yes.
Someone else wrong. And everyone's entitled to their opinion. So what can I learn from listening better?
We could all do with more of that. That's for sure.
And I don't have to agree, but I can appreciate someone else's story and where they've come from and their experiences. And perhaps there is something I can take away that's of value if I'm a good listener.
Absolutely right. I would agree with you on all those points. Is there one person in particular that you admire as like a badass woman that really stands out to you?
There is, and this is kind of simple because sometimes I'm so with my head down and I'm not as aware as I'd like to be of all the amazing people and all the accomplishments of women right now. Because we all kind of have our head down, doing our thing, keeping busy, trying to balance our lives. But what came to mind when you asked me that is my grandmother. She was 13 in Norway when her mother died, and her father was an entrepreneur. He started a bus company, he had a farm, he had a store, and he has 6 kids. So he had to find a new wife. So he found a new wife who also had 3 kids, and she happened to be like a wicked stepmother type.
Oh, no. Oh, boy.
So my bold and brave 16-year-old grandmother, and when I think of it, having raised daughters and having a granddaughter, 16 years old, got on a boat, came to the United States, became a maid, did meet her husband. She moved to a Scandinavian neighborhood in Brooklyn, the same neighborhood that I moved back to after college, and got married. My mother learned English and taught my grandparents English when she was old enough. And when my uncle was in college, she decided she wanted to write all of his letters to him in English. So she would sit with a Norwegian English dictionary and write her letters in English to her son.
Wow.
To me, that's a badass woman.
Incredible lineage of females in your family. I'm so impressed by every generation that you speak of. I hope there's a book in there somewhere.
I don't know. I think all women are amazing. And I think all of our stories and if we ask and listen to our parents' stories, grandparents' stories, there's just so much there if we hear it and look for it. I hope that people are taking advantage of that still have their grandparents. My parents are passed away as well, but there's so much value there right in our own backyard. Everyone has a story.
Absolutely. I've gotten better about it, as I've gotten older, sitting down with my parents, with aunts and uncles. I just love talking about stories of things I knew that happened when I was a kid, but I wasn't really aware of it at the time. And it's so true about the value you can gain, and you learn from their strength and their character. And then you realize how much you have in common and how much you still have to learn. I think it'd be wonderful to start archiving this, whether it's on video or audio, just like this, to say, you know what, whenever my grandkids get their futuristic iPhone 25, whatever we get to at that point, they should be able to easily access these things. Because if I think about my great-grandparents, I maybe have a picture and I maybe have a couple of stories. Wouldn't it be wonderful to just start collecting so much more of that now?
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I'm so fortunate that was important to my family, my parents, my grandparents. I had the privilege to know them, spent a lot of quality time with my parents. My daughters spent a lot of quality time with my parents because you can't get that back once they're gone.
That's right.
And everyone has an amazing story somewhere if they have the proper listener or somebody to draw out, ask the questions. And I don't think we do that with our family. Sometimes we just want to move away and start our life and make our own path, but there is so much value there.
I agree. Well, it is an absolute privilege to hear from you directly about your amazing story. And I just want to take a moment to see if you can let our listeners know how they can get in touch with you, because as you mentioned, you're helping women start small businesses. You're full speed ahead with Heidi's Brooklyn Deli. How can people learn more about your work and how they can possibly work with you?
Well, what I've been doing for a long time is mentoring people, men and women, when they said, oh, I'm thinking of doing this or that, any advice? And I've found out that we're all in our own wheelhouse, and there's so many things we haven't thought of that we can share with one another. So I've been doing that for a long time. So I've recently begun consulting, I guess is a good word, people that specifically are interested in the small business. And that's kind of those boring things that we spoke of. Mm-hmm. That you need to address to be able to thrive with your passion. So small business or restaurants, because there's a lot of knowledge there with how that works, and distributors and food cost and all that fun stuff. And then also franchising. I've had a lot of people inquire with me about it and the complexities of it, and is it worth it? Personally, I think that world's changing a lot. So I have a lot of opinions about it, whether or not that's a right goal to have, or a place, a person say, oh, in 5 years, I want to get there. And maybe not, but I love to have those conversations. So my email is Heidi, B, Heidi, B as in boy, .anotherdoor@gmail.com. And another door, just briefly, is a concept. It's come to my mind, and my daughter uses it. Is when we feel we have a decision to make and we feel pressured. It's like, it has to be this or this. I've learned there's always another door. And perhaps when we're looking right and left, we're missing what might be right in front of us. That's a great opportunity or a different way of thinking.
That resonates with me so much. Thank you for sharing that.
So that's going to be my new journey, is another door.
Wow. Well, thank you for taking the time to walk up to this door, to the Women Who Badass Radio. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you about your journey, and thank you for sharing your kindness and your wisdom with us.
It was kind of fun.
Good.
Definitely stretching me, but I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you for stepping outside that comfort zone.
Thanks for listening to Women Who Badass Radio. To join our tribe of badass women, visit womenwhobadass.com to sign up for your free trial membership.